All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into self-love. And for this one, we're going to be looking at a pretty popular YouTube video. It's called Self-Love Positive Morning Motivation Listen Every Day.
Mhm.
It's from this channel called Mind Motivation Coaching. They've got tons of views, and honestly, the speaker's energy is like instantly contagious. What really jumped out at me, though, is how they talk about that feeling of being empty without self-love. Like, what are your initial thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, it's a pretty powerful way to put it, right?
Oh.
And I think, it really kind of gets at something that a lot of people experience, that feeling of always like searching for something to fill a void,
Hmm.
but always looking outside of yourself, like, chasing achievements or possessions or even other people's approval.
Yeah, for sure. And the speaker's super clear that true self-love just isn't about any of that external stuff. In fact, they say, and I'm quoting here, "I love me independent of you loving me. I believe in me. I know my self-worth." It's a boom, a total declaration of independence from needing any validation from outside. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like that's it. And that kind of independence, like that's really the core of what we call intrinsic motivation. It's a huge thing in psychology. And basically it means like finding that drive and satisfaction from within instead of always needing those external rewards or needing someone to tell you you're doing great.
Right, right. Like if you always have to depend on something else to feel good about yourself, then you're always going to be kind of at the mercy of those things, right?
Exactly. You're never really in control.
And the speaker, I gotta say, they don't shy away from the tough stuff either. Like, they get right into talking about forgiveness, especially like forgiving yourself and those who've maybe hurt you in the past.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And I think, forgiveness is definitely something that people often misunderstand. It's not about just forgetting what happened or saying it was okay, right? Like it's not condoning harmful actions or anything like that. Really, it's more about acknowledging what happened and then letting yourself actually like process those emotions. And this is, I think, the biggest part, actually choosing to let go of all that negativity that might be holding you back.
That's a good point. It's like holding on to that anger or resentment. It doesn't really do anything for you.
Right.
Yeah.
It just keeps you stuck. And there's actually, a ton of studies out there that show how forgiveness can actually like physically benefit you too.
Yeah.
Like it can lead to less stress, lower blood pressure, even a stronger immune system.
Wow, I actually didn't realize it could have that kind of impact. That's pretty incredible. There's this one quote they have about forgiveness that really stuck with me. They say, "Forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could be any different." And that really made me think, because like sometimes we get so caught up in wishing things had gone differently, but clinging to that, it can really keep us from moving on, right?
Absolutely. It's so true. We get trapped in all those what ifs and should haves, but forgiveness, it gives us this chance to kind of accept what was and then like shift all that energy and focus on actually creating a better present and a better future.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that idea of accepting things without like having to say they were okay, that really resonated with me. Sometimes it feels like we're stuck between either like dwelling on the pain of the past or pretending it just didn't happen. But there's got to be like this middle ground, right? Where you can
Yeah.
acknowledge things happened and still choose to move on.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what you're talking about there gets at this idea of resilience,
Mm.
our ability to kind of adapt and bounce back from challenges. And actually, the video touches on that a bit too. They have this whole thing about like a cyclical view of life. They keep saying how everything is temporary, even the really tough times. In fact, they say it not come to stay. It has come to pass. Not to stay just to pass. It's just going through.
Oh, I love that. That's so good. I'm writing that one down. It's like, yeah, life is always changing, right?
Yeah.
So even the situations that feel like they're going to last forever, they're not. Do you think that kind of perspective can help us like deal with those inevitable ups and downs?
Oh, definitely. I think it's huge.
Yeah.
When you can understand that those challenges are temporary, it shifts your whole outlook. Instead of feeling like you're drowning in it, it's like, okay, this is tough, but I can get through this. It's not minimizing the pain or anything,
Mhm.
but it helps you access that inner strength,
Yeah.
and find a way through it.
I like that. Find a way through it.
And that kind of leads into another really important point they make in the video, this whole idea of willpower. It's not just about like, riding out the storm. It's about actively shaping your life, like taking control.
Yeah, you're right. They're all about taking charge. I remember this one line that just hit me. They said, "It doesn't matter about what happens to you. What matters is what are you going to do about it?" Like, wow, that's a call to action right there. It's a reminder that we're not just like passively along for the ride.
Exactly. It's like saying, hey, you have agency, you have power. It's about moving away from that victim mentality and stepping into like a proactive mindset.
That makes sense. And the cool thing is they don't just leave you hanging with this idea of willpower. They actually give you some real practical advice on how to build it up. Like they talk about being willing to go against the tide,
Hmm.
like breaking free from all those expectations that society throws at us and actually pursuing your own path.
It's almost like a rebellion against conformity.
Yeah.
There.
That's a great way to put it.
Because, personal growth, it often means we have to kind of challenge the status quo, like question those assumptions we've always had and really forge our own unique path. And that takes guts, right? To stand out for the crowd
Yeah.
and say, this is what matters to me. I'm going for it.
For sure, it's not always easy.
Yeah.
And to help with that, they have this really interesting suggestion. They tell you to write down a description of the person you want to become. It's almost like creating a blueprint for your future self.
I love that idea. It's like,
Yeah.
set that vision for yourself, make it clear. And that can be so motivating. When you know where you want to go, it makes it way easier to actually figure out the journey. Even when things get tough, you've got that North Star.
Right, exactly. It's like setting an intention. And they also talk a lot about being honest with yourself, really honest about both your good qualities and the things you might need to work on. There's this part where they actually ask the viewer, what are the things that you must overcome? What qualities about your personality do you know that you're going to have to change? Because those particular characteristics are liabilities to you.
Oh, yeah, self-awareness. That's huge. We can't grow if we're not willing to see ourselves clearly,
Right.
both the good and the maybe not so good.
Totally. It's like holding up a mirror and actually taking a good look.
Yeah.
Even if you see some flaws.
And that can be hard. It can be uncomfortable to confront those parts of ourselves that we'd rather just ignore.
Yeah, but it's got to be done, right?
Yeah. If we really want to become the best versions of ourselves, it's essential.
And speaking of seeing ourselves clearly, that's where they bring back in this idea of trusted critics.
Right. Those people in our lives who are willing to, give us that honest feedback, even if it's not always what we want to hear.
Exactly. It's like surrounding yourself with people who actually care about your growth.
And who will tell you the truth, even when it's tough.
And the speaker in the video, they're really open about how hard that can be sometimes to actually hear that kind of feedback. They say, we take it personal when someone wants to give us some feedback on where we are falling short and tell us about our blind spots. We want to have everything being positive about us. We're not perfect.
Yeah, it's so true, though. We all want to be liked. We want to be admired.
For sure.
But to really grow, we have to be open to those, what we call constructive criticisms. It's about shifting that perspective, Instead of seeing it as a personal attack, it's like, oh, okay, this is an opportunity to learn and improve.
It's like a gift, almost.
Yeah, exactly. It's information you can use to get better.
And they even share this story, a really personal one, about their own experience with a trusted critic. It's this friend of theirs, and they describe him as someone they don't like, but I love him. Because he's just brutally honest, but that's what makes him so valuable.
Yeah, I think that says so much, right? About the importance of having those relationships where people can really challenge you.
Totally.
It's about having those people who care enough to push you, to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
And to really, help you reach your full potential.
And the speaker even admits that it hurts when he put me on the hot seat. I can't stand it, but that the only way that I can grow, and I'm glad that he loves me enough to risk our friendship to tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear.
It's powerful, right?
Yeah.
It shows that deep connection, that
Yeah.
willingness to be uncomfortable, to maybe even risk a little conflict for the sake of growth.
So this brings up a question for me. How do we actually apply this idea of trusted critics in our own lives? How do we find those people who will be that honest with us?
Well, I think, it starts with being open to feedback in general, even when it's not all sunshine and roses.
Yeah, it's going to be genuine.
And it also means creating that space where people feel safe to be honest with us, to share their perspective, even if it's not what we want to hear.
It's about being receptive, right? Not shutting down or getting defensive when someone offers a different point of view.
Exactly. It's about listening to understand, not just to respond.
And it takes practice, right?
It does, but it's so worth it.
And it's not just about seeking out criticism either. It's also about having those people in your life who believe in you, who support your dreams and celebrate your wins with you.
Oh, absolutely. That's key too. It's about finding that balance, right? Between the people who challenge you and the people who encourage you.
It's like having your own personal cheer squad but a cheer squad that's not afraid to give you some tough love when you need it.
Exactly. That's the sweet spot.
And, sometimes those trusted critics might not be who you expect. It could be a mentor, a coworker, a family member, even someone you just admire from afar.
Yeah, that's true. I think the point is to be open to receiving wisdom and guidance from wherever it comes, like recognizing that everyone has something to teach us.
That's a good point. And that actually kind of leads into another big theme from the video. This whole idea of like never stop learning.
Oh yeah, lifelong learning, that's huge.
They talk about how important it is to constantly be seeking out new knowledge.
To push yourself outside your comfort zone, expand your horizons.
And they even give some practical tips on how to do that, right?
Yeah, like reading books, listening to podcasts, taking classes.
Talking to people with different perspectives than your own.
It's about being curious,
Yeah.
and never being afraid to ask questions.
And it's not just about like filling your head with information either. It's about actually taking that knowledge and doing something with it.
Yeah, applying it to your life, making it real.
So it's not just about personal growth then. It's about using that growth to make a difference in the world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about contributing to something bigger than yourself.
And I think that's a really powerful message to end on. This idea that self-love isn't just about feeling good about yourself. It's about recognizing your worth, embracing your potential, and using it to make the world a better place.
That's beautiful and so true.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? Like you wouldn't think a simple motivational video could spark such a deep conversation.
I know, right? But I think it's because they really hit on something we all crave, like that desire to be happy, to have a purpose, to feel like our lives have meaning.
Yeah, totally. And this video, it kind of lays out a roadmap for how to actually get there. It's not just about like repeating nice phrases,
Yeah.
It's about taking real steps to actually improve yourself.
Right, and realizing that self-love, it's not just this thing you magically achieve one day, It's an ongoing thing. You're always working on it. It takes effort and commitment and a willingness to really challenge yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that really stuck with me was that whole part about who you surround yourself with, like having those trusted critics in your life, they can make such a difference.
Totally. They're like those mirrors that show you all sides of yourself, the good, the bad, the stuff you might try to hide.
And sometimes looking in those mirrors, it can be tough. Like nobody wants to see their flaws, right?
Right. But the thing is, you can't really grow unless you're willing to face them.
And this video, it really makes you think about how important it is to have those relationships, the ones where people are honest with you, even if it's hard to hear.
It all comes back to that idea we were talking about, Growth comes from discomfort. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, to be open to feedback, even when it's tough, that's when real transformation can happen.
And on the flip side, it's also important to have those people who believe in you, right?
Yeah.
The ones who support your dreams and celebrate your wins with you.
Absolutely. You got to have both, the challenge and the support.
Like a good balance.
Yeah, exactly.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into self-love, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. If you could give one piece of advice to someone who's just starting out on this journey of self-discovery, what would it be?
That's a good one. I think I would say this. Embrace the journey. Don't get so caught up in trying to reach some perfect destination,
Yeah.
Because self-love, it's not a finish line. It's a process. It's about constantly learning and growing and becoming more and more yourself. So be patient with yourself, celebrate the progress you make, and never stop exploring. There's so much to discover about who you are.
I love that. That's a great way to put it. And I think it really captures what we've been talking about today, this whole idea that self-love, it's an adventure.
It is.
It's going to have its ups and downs, but it's a journey worth taking.
Remember, you don't have to do it alone. Find those trusted critics. Surround yourself with people who lift you up.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into self-love. We hope you found it helpful and maybe even a little inspiring. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep loving.